Did dinosaurs really exist? What if you lived in the Jurassic Period? Suppose you could go back in history, millions of years ago. How would it look like? If you imagine dinosaurs, you're right.
Boy, my head being right all the
Could you survive in this strange land? Maybe you could have a pet dinosaur. There really are dinosaurs over there. It might not be as terrible as you think. This video will discuss with dinosaurs that lived during the Jurassic Period and what would happen if you lived during the Jurassic Period. When did the Jurassic Period happen? You've probably imagined what a dinosaur would look like. You may have thought that these huge animals ruled the world, or you might have watched them in films. Let us just focus on the Jurassic Period, when dinosaurs were in charge. From 199 million years ago to 145 million years ago, the Jurassic Period took place. Plate tectonics, as researchers call it, caused the globe to alter in significant ways during this time. At first, all the large land areas that we now refer to as continents were part of a single mainland called Pangaea. Pangaea was gradually divided into different land areas at the time. As an outcome, there were various plants and animals on land and water. Now, since we understand what the Jurassic Period was, let us discover more about dinosaurs, the most famous animals throughout this period. So, are you excited? Reptiles. During the Jurassic Period, most animal life was made up of reptiles. Reptiles could support themselves and have babies, which were problems with amphibians. Reptiles had powerful, hardened skeletons held together by complex muscle systems that helped them to stay upright and move. Dinosaurs lived during the Jurassic Period. They were among the biggest animals that have ever lived. Reptiles could also lay amniotic eggs, holding the developing babies moist and feeding while the mother was carrying them. This made it possible for the first animals to live their whole lives on land. Now, let's discuss some of the dinosaur species found in this era. Brachiosaurus. The Brachiosaurus was a type of sauropod. Sauropod dinosaurs were recognized for their large necks and long tails. In reality, such kinds of dinosaurs were the biggest animals that have ever lived on Earth. The Brachiosaurus used to have a long tail and stayed on 4 giant legs that held its huge body far above the Earth's surface. Its 2 front legs were somewhat longer than its hind legs, so the Brachiosaurus would stand very much like a giraffe. Pretty cool, right? The Brachiosaurus ate only plants. Its large neck allowed it to feast on the tops of trees above the ground. Researchers believe the Brachiosaurus ate as much as 500 pounds of plants daily. Woohoo! Would you eat so much fresh fruits and vegetables in a single day? Not at all. So they could eat far too much. Such herbivores used to have pointed, pin-like teeth that let them catch leaves fast. Sauropods. In the late Jurassic Period, sauropod dinosaurs first appeared. They were typically dinosaurs with long necks and long tails. The biggest of them grew to be more than 40 meters long and weigh approximately 100 tons. A lot of their size was mainly owing to air-filled pouches inside their bodies that ran through their massive bones and helped them increase in size. It is assumed that sauropods had big rocks in their tummies called gastroliths that helped them break down the hard plant matter they ate because they ate so much of it. A lot of what we know about what dinosaurs ate emerges from studying their fossilized poop, called coprolites, and from their fossilized tracks. Paleontologists also used to think that sauropods could only swim because they believed that sauropods couldn't assist their massive weight alone without the buoyant force of water. We know that sauropods could have legs like an elephant that have been strong enough to withstand their weight. After looking at fossils and bones, it was also decided that gigantic sauropods wandered with their tails kept up in the air, not pulling along the ground as was assumed before. Diplodocus. Diplodocus, or double beam, is likely the most well-known sauropod. It had a narrow neck and a tail. It was over 25 meters long. Due to their size, the Diplodocus may have pulled up new trees and pressed over trees to reach their meals, making open fields. Stegosaurus. The roof lizard was a late Jurassic herbivore about the size of a tiny dog. Stegosaurus was about 7 meters in length and could weigh up to 3 tons. Its back was made up of a series of huge, bony plates. The frame of the vascular system operating through the plates could mean that they were used to show things off or to control the temperature. The Stegosaurus had a strong tail with spikes that might hurt or kill wild animals. Allosaurus. The other lizard emerged as the most familiar huge predator during that time. It was about 12 meters long and ate both sauropods and small rodents. A few research shows that Allosaurus took good care of its children by restoring meat that they could eat. The young resided in a safe shelter until they became old enough to care for themselves. The Allosaurus did not have a chomp that could break bones. In reality, its contoured teeth and substantial upper jaw would cause deep wounds whenever it smacked down on its prey. This let it kill its victim in one go, and afterward, stand back and watch it until it died. Plant life. By the Mesozoic era, the biological organism had changed so that they could survive on land instead of just in the water. By the time the Jurassic Period had started, plants had changed from bryophytes, which were low-growing mosses and liverworts that didn't have vascular tissue and could only develop in wet, swampy places. Ferns and ginkgos were the most common plants in the early Jurassic Period. They had root systems, vascular tissue to transfer water and minerals, and spores to make more plants. During the Jurassic Period, there was a change in how plants spread their seeds. Gymnosperms, which are plants like conifers that have cones, let the wind spread pollen. This permitted more genetic mixing, resulting in the Jurassic gymnosperms being found worldwide. Fossils also show that flowering plants called angiosperms appeared in the middle to late Jurassic Period. Paleobotanists used to think that the angiosperms didn't come into existence until the Cretaceous period. But, particularly in comparison to gymnosperms, flowering plants would have been extremely rare during the Jurassic Period. The Brachiosaurus was approximately as tall as a building with 4 stories. Marine life. During the Jurassic Period, many different kinds of aquatic life existed. Plesiosaurs were the largest sea meat eaters. Marine reptiles that ate meat had wide bodies, long necks, and 4 flippers-shaped legs. Ichthyosaurus was a reptile that looked more like a fish and lived most often in the early Jurassic. It is thought that those animals might have been the first organisms to carry their babies inside of them and give birth to live young. This is based on the fact that certain fossils show tiny animals that looked like they were inside of bigger ones. There were also many ancestors of today's squids, sharks, and rays that had fins. The curving shells of the ammonites represent some of the gorgeous fossil records of aquatic life. The first mammals. Even though dinosaurs were the most common land animals, they weren't the only ones. Most of the earliest mammalian species were tiny herbivores or insect eaters, so they didn't have to compete with the bigger reptiles. Adelobacillus, which looked like a shrew, lived in the late Jurassic. It had the ear and jaw bones of a mammal, which were different. Scientists in Japan have found the jaw of a mammal that lived 112 million years ago. The jaw demonstrates that such a clade of mammals quickly changed into things that would later be discovered in placental animals. In August of 2011, Chinese scientists told the world they had found Jurassic. Researchers are excited about this small mid-Jurassic animal simply because it is obviously an Otherian, an ancestor of the placental mammals. This shows that mammals developed much sooner than was assumed before. Well, that's it for today's video. Do you wish to go back to the Jurassic Period and live with dinosaurs? Welcome to the interactive discussion below. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and share. See you next time.